Hello and welcome to this video. We are going to talk about ISO 26000 or Guidance on Social Responsibility. What is social responsibility? Social responsibility in business, also known as corporate social responsibility, CSR, pertains to people and organizations behaving and conducting business ethically and with sensitivity towards social, cultural, economic, and environmental issues. Striving for social responsibility helps individuals, organizations, and governments have a positive impact on development, business, and society. Smart business decisions are not just a matter of counting short-term dollars and cents. Wise decision-makers consider the future impact of today's choices on people, on the community, and on customers and their opinions. Now, why does CSR matter? According to Sun in 2022, 75% of consumers are likely to take negative action against companies that behave irresponsibly. This can range from posting on social media to organizing boycotts. Also, companies that are perceived as irresponsible stand to lose as much as 39% of their potential customer base. 1 in 4 consumers will tell their friends and family to avoid companies they view as irresponsible. Lastly, 83% of professional investors say they are more likely to invest in companies known for their social responsibility. Businesses that embrace CSR initiatives tend to be more transparent and honest overall, which makes them a lower risk investment. Next, what is ISO 26000? ISO 26000 is the international standard developed to help organizations effectively assess and address social responsibilities that are relevant and significant to their mission and vision, operations and processes, customers, employees, communities, and other stakeholders, and environmental impact. ISO 26000 to 2010 provides guidance rather than requirements, so it cannot be certified to unlike some other well-known ISO standards. Instead, it helps clarify what social responsibility is, helps businesses and organizations translate principles into effective actions and shares best practices relating to social responsibility, globally. The most recent version of the standard, ISO 26000 to 2010, was last reviewed and confirmed in 2021. More than 80 countries have since adopted ISO 26000 to 2010 as a national standard. These include the US, the UK, Canada, Germany, and France, as well as many developing countries. Thousands of companies and organizations around the world use the standard, including global brands like Coca-Cola and Starbucks. Another tenet of social responsibility is what's shown in the figure, the triple bottom line, also known as people, planet, and profit. This is the belief that achieving profit does not require harm to the planet or the exploitation of people. Organizations can profit while also taking care of the planet and people. ISO 26000 outlines 7 key principles and 7 core subjects. Let us take a look at the principles first, which are viewed as the roots of socially responsible behavior. As part of their approach to responsibility, companies will make sure to integrate those values within their business model and in every decision they make. Accountability. Management takes responsibility for the social and environmental impacts of its operations, supply chain, products, services, and behavior. Transparency. The organization shares information about social and environmental performance with all stakeholders. Ethical behavior. The organization shows respect for human rights and ensures that its workforce operates in a safe environment. It also ensures that it is not complicit in human rights abuses of others, such as forced or slave labor, by business partners or suppliers. Respect for stakeholder interests. The organization shows consideration for the interests and expectations of all stakeholders and manages any negative impacts on their legitimate interests. Respect for the rule of law. The organization works within the local and national laws of each country in which it operates. Respect for international norms of behavior. The organization operates with integrity and transparency beyond national boundaries. Respect for human rights. The organization ensures that it is not complicit in human rights abuses of others, such as forced or slave labor, by business partners or suppliers. Now, ISO 26000 gives 7 core subjects to work on, related to the organization's operations, as shown in the figure. The standard emphasizes on the holistic socially responsible approach. Each of the 7 subjects must be understood as being a constituent element of a coherent whole. The subjects are further divided into several subsequent issues, which explain the guidelines that companies are asked to follow. Companies will identify the relevant and priority issues accordingly. 1. Organizational governance. ISO26000 encourages organizations to consider accountability, transparency, and ethics in their decision-making process and governing practices. Specifically, this includes formal and informal processes as well as the organization's norms and values. ISO offers guidance to help companies establish processes, systems, and other mechanisms to hold themselves accountable. 2. Human rights. Human rights are the universal freedoms that apply to all human beings, regardless of race, gender, language, religion, national origin, or other status. These rights are based on the principle of respect for the individual and aim to protect people from abuse, discrimination, and exploitation. ISO 26000 provides guidance for companies to support human rights, particularly by allowing free organization and collective negotiation, providing equal employment opportunities, preventing all forms of discrimination, resolving grievances, seeking ways to prevent or mitigate adverse human rights impacts, including child labor. 3. Labor practices. An organization's labor practices must be consistent with its policies. This applies to an organization's employees, but also to any work done on its behalf, such as subcontracted work. Responsible labor practices should address employment and contractual relationships, working conditions and social protection, social dialogue, health and safety at work, human development and training in the workplace. 4. The environment. No matter where an organization is located, its decisions and activities will inevitably have an impact on the environment. This may include the use of resources, generation of pollution and waste, and damage to natural habitats. ISO 26000 urges organizations to minimize their environmental impacts and ensure that their resource consumption is sustainable. They are encouraged to adopt a holistic approach that considers the direct and indirect socioeconomic, health, and environmental effects of their activities. Among other things, organizations are urged to embrace initiatives to prevent pollution, use resources sustainably, mitigate and adapt to climate change, protect the environment, biodiversity, and the restoration of natural habitats. 5. Fair operating practices. Fair operating practices address the way an organization interacts with others. ISO 26000 calls for organizations to deal ethically with customers, partners, suppliers, contractors, competitors, and government agencies to bring about positive results. Fair operating practices include preventing corruption, responsible political involvement, fair competition, promoting social responsibility in the value chain, respecting property rights. 6. Consumer issues. Organizations that provide products and services have certain responsibilities to consumers. ISO 26000 encourages companies to promote fair and sustainable economic and social development. A responsible approach to consumer issues includes fair marketing practices, protection of health and safety, sustainable consumption, consumer education, dispute resolution, data and privacy protection, upholding fair use, ensuring that essential products and services are available to everyone, including vulnerable or disadvantaged groups. 7. Community involvement and development. All organizations have an impact on the communities where they operate, and their active participation can help ensure the well-being of these communities. In fact, community involvement and development are two of the most important ways organizations can contribute to a more sustainable society. ISO 26000 offers guidance on active community involvement, support for civil institutions, promotion of education and culture, job creation and skills development, technology development and access, income and wealth creation, health promotion, social investment. What does ISO 26000 accomplish? ISO 26000 aims to assist organizations in addressing their social responsibilities while respecting cultural, societal, environmental, and legal differences and economic development conditions. Provide practical guidance related to making social responsibility operational. Assist with identifying and engaging with stakeholders and enhancing credibility of reports and claims made about social responsibility. Emphasize performance results and improvement. Increase confidence and satisfaction in organizations among their customers and other stakeholders. Achieve consistency with existing documents, international treaties and conventions, and existing ISO standards. Promote common terminology in the social responsibility field. Broaden awareness of social responsibility. Using ISO 26000 helps companies manage and reduce risks, and identify new opportunities. It is a great framework to start the sustainability journey. Increasing social responsibility contributes to a virtuous cycle, where each action strengthens the company and encourages sustainable development among all stakeholders. Implementing the policies and guidelines outlined in ISO 26000 provides companies with competitive advantage. Reputation. The ability to attract and retain workers or members, customers, clients and users. The maintenance of employee morale, commitment and productivity. The perception of investors, owners, donors, sponsors and the financial community. Relationships with companies, governments, the media, suppliers, peers, customers and the community in which it operates. Next is tools. What tools are related to the ISO 26000 standard? The experts at ISO have created several documents to help organizations implement the ISO 26000 standard. These resources include Communication Protocol. This document provides organizations with appropriate wording to effectively communicate about their ISO 26000 implementation. Training materials. ISO has developed training materials, including PowerPoint presentations and training structures in PDF format, to facilitate knowledge transfer and skill development related to ISO 26000. Documents linking ISO 26000. These materials establish connections between ISO 26000 and other important frameworks, such as the OECD Guidelines for Multinational Enterprises and the UN 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. These valuable resources, along with other materials, are readily available on the ISO website. They provide organizations with comprehensive information and guidance to support their understanding and implementation of the ISO 26000 standard. Many types of organizations can use ISO 26000. Organizations in the private, public, and nonprofit sectors, whether large or small, and whether operating in developed or developing countries, use ISO 26000. ISO 26000 can be used, for example, by large multinational corporations, small and medium-sized enterprises, the public sector, hospitals, schools or others, foundations, charities and NGOs, extractive industries, such as mining and fossil fuel companies, service and financial industries, banks, insurance, municipal governments, farmers and agribusiness, consultancies. Moving on, how do companies implement ISO 26000? First is by referring to his diagram, which relates to the schematic overview and timeline. ISO 26000 is open source. It is available for everyone's use and customizable as per needs and context of its user. Only the print copies are chargeable. ISO 26000 is designed to work in all organizational and cultural contexts, in any country or region. On the operational side, there are no certification or specific requirements, as well as no particular timeline. Organizations can use the standard suggestions for implementing a social responsibility policy as they like and, in the timeline, they decide. Next is implementation. The steps for implementing a social responsibility policy following ISO 26000 guidance may vary depending on the strategy and objectives defined by companies. However, the 8 steps below provide an idea of what the process generally looks like. 1. Fully understand the ISO 26000 standard and framework. Companies can use the many resources available online to train managers and employees to ensure that socially responsible behaviors are implemented throughout the organization and integrated into the day-to-day business. 2. Conduct situational diagnostic, landscape analysis. Companies will explore what social responsibility means to them. Evaluate their situation for each of the ISO 26007 core subjects, identifying significant issues. Define the importance of each core subject for their business and their long-term vision and strategy. 3. Identify the relevant issues. The 7 core subjects contain 37 issues in total. Not all of the 37 specific issues will be relevant to every company. For each issue, the standard provides appropriate guidelines and implementation strategies for companies to self-assess their current status and set achievable goals for improvement. 4. Identify and engage the stakeholders. ISO 26000 defines a stakeholder as an individual or group that has an interest in any decision or activity of an organization. Stakeholder categories include workers, clients, purchasers, consumers, owners, investors, government officials, community residents, and suppliers. Companies must have two-way discussions with them about how they can both best work together. It can be the trickiest part of the process, so it's important to make sure not to attempt to engage all stakeholders on all issues at the beginning, to prioritize core subjects and related stakeholders, to focus on areas where companies and their stakeholders can most realistically move forward together within the limits of each entity's resources. 5. Improvement plans. Based on the current picture diagnostic, companies will identify current weaknesses and the causes behind them. Identify resources needed to overcome the weaknesses, time, money, partners, etc. Develop a timeline and action plan to bridge the gaps. Always take into account the impacts of the considered changes. 6. Public reporting. The standard urges that, at appropriate intervals, users report on their performance on social responsibility to affected stakeholders. The standard suggests that the report should include, honestly and accurately description of the current situation, information about objectives and performance on the core subjects and relevant issues of social responsibility, notification on how and when stakeholders have been involved in the reporting, a fair and complete picture of performance, including achievements and shortfalls, and how the latter will be addressed. When companies produce reports to communicate their commitments, investments, actions, and progress towards socially responsible initiatives, the report is often called as Corporate Social Responsibility Report or CSR report. Such a CSR report can also take into account other CSR reporting standards and frameworks. For instance, the Global Reporting Initiative, GRI, a non-governmental organization created to develop and manage a sustainability reporting framework, provides guidance on how to use the GRI G4 guidelines in conjunction with the ISO 26000 standard. 7. Communicate with transparency about social responsibility. As part of a continuing dialogue between companies and their ecosystem. 8. Claiming credit. Because ISO 26000 is not for certification purposes, the International Organization for Standardization is extremely sensitive to any usage of the name, ISO 26000 inches that could imply that an organization or company has been, or needs to be, certified to the standard. CSR reporting. Integrating ISO 26000 and GRI reporting guidance. ISO 26000 and GRI, Global Reporting Initiative, are two distinct frameworks that organizations often use for corporate social responsibility, CSR, and sustainability reporting. A little background information on GRI. GRI is a nonprofit organization that has developed a widely used framework for sustainability reporting. GRI standards consist of a set of disclosures organized into topic-specific standards, covering various aspects such as economic performance, environmental impacts, social aspects, and governance. Organizations can use GRI standards to prepare sustainability reports that communicate their sustainability impacts, performance, and related policies. How is the ISO and GRI guidance on the reporting process? 1. Determining which topics to report. Organizations start by preparing for the reporting process, identifying the scope, boundaries, and material aspects relevant to their sustainability performance. Then, inclusion of stakeholders in the reporting process is a must. Organizations are encouraged to engage with stakeholders to identify key issues and concerns. Materiality assessments is also crucial to help organizations identify and prioritize the most significant economic, environmental, and social aspects for reporting based on their impact on stakeholders and the organization. 2. Identifying performance indicators and other specific disclosures. To be credible, a social responsibility report must measure performance with indicators. Indicators require specific qualitative or quantitative information. GRI offers widely used specific indicators dealing with a range of economic, social and environmental topics. 3. Ensuring the quality of reported information. Organizations are advised to ensure the accuracy, completeness, and reliability of the information disclosed in their reports. This involves internal and, where appropriate, external assurance processes. Case study of ISO 26000 implementation by Cairo Chamber of Commerce, Egypt. The project goal is to contribute to achieving sustainable development through effective integration of social responsibility principles and practices, ISO 26000, in the MENA region, using the National Standards Body, NSB, as the central pivot. Meanwhile, the project purpose is to build capacity in the MENA region through the creation of pool of national expertise supporting selected pilot organizations to implement social responsibility principles and practices, ISO 26000. How did Cairo Chamber of Commerce use ISO 26000 to 2010? In Cairo Chamber of Commerce, they used and developed the ISO 26000 through unique procedures such as, 1. The Chairman Decree to form the Sustainable Business Committee issued in May 2013, to include an equal representation of all departments and genders in the Chamber. The main role of the committee is to act as the ISO 26000 SR developing team, headed by the Chamber's Chief Executive and directed by the Chamber's Chairman to facilitate its mission. 2. In February 2014, a Sustainable Business Work Group was formed to act solely in following up the activities of the Sustainable Business Committee and support the implementation process of the defined action plan. 3. They created the work group themes that involves participants from discussion issue-related departments as well as business sectors and related stakeholders for in-focus discussion to specific issues. The outcomes of the discussion work groups are to be reported to the Sustainable Business Committee to consider in its action plan related. 4. They committed to stakeholders roundtables discussions to involve their stakeholders in all related actions to develop the ISO 26000 SR implementation in the Chamber. 5. They assigned social responsibility page in their website that reflects all information related to the Chamber SR activities and highlight all related events and responsible changes that they take. There are several main steps of integrating ISO 26000 according to Cairo Chamber of Commerce. 1. Focus on revised governance, systems and procedures. 2. Focus on measurements, monitoring and reporting of SR performance. 3. Focus on sphere of influence. 4. Focus on training and communication. 5. Focus on SR-related initiatives. For focus on revised governance, systems and procedures, the example of the steps are: developed a framework determining the vision, mission and practices of the Chamber that commits solely to the SR. Commit the transparency as a core value in all communications and practices in the Chamber. Enforced the commitment to the human rights principles, labor rights and gender diversity at work. For focus on measurements, monitoring and reporting of SR performance, the example of the steps are: regular surveys to measure the level of our practices and its impact. Enable online commenting tool for our stakeholders to take part through their comments on our services and quality as well. Committing to report SR and sustainability annually in our website as well as a printed copy. For focus on sphere of influence, the example of the steps are: awareness-raising session for traders by sector. Round tables for large traders to gain commitment and develop the awareness related to ISO 26000. Creating integrated online page in our website focusing on SR. For focus on training and communication, the example of the steps are: internal training, communication. Developing awareness sessions to university student on social responsibility and ISO 26000. Raising the awareness of all Chambers employee through information session conducted internally. Created a platform of communication through email system and online website. External training, communication. Jointly with other partners we developed info sessions in focus on some of the main subjects of the ISO 26000, consumer rights, labor rights, child labor. Provide printed materials on SR in our events and other partner events to share increasing awareness raising of ISO 26000. For focus on SR-related initiatives, the example of the steps are: developed agreement with partners for more socially responsible initiatives. Acting as a middleman in reaching tax accounting agreements. Participating in the social efforts to support victims of natural crises. Developing the poultry shops by offering loans to enhance their situations. That is all for this video. I hope that the information in this video can be useful for everyone watching.